All right, Ned is my choice of CBD. Here's why. It's a full spectrum CBD. It has all of the essential cannabinoids, not just the isolate. It's so important to have all of the cannabinoids because they work on different parts of the body. Ned is grown organically from hemp plants sourced in Paonia, Colorado, with zero isolates or synthetic ingredients. You can go on the website, you can check third party testing, and you will see that they care so much about their transparency that they have COAs for every ingredient in their product. It's amazing stuff, and that's what they're committed to. A recent study showed the majority of products in the CBD industry contain potentially dangerous ingredients and adulterants. This is why it's so important. If you are utilizing CBD, it has to be high quality. You have to make sure that this company is transparent, and that's why I love Ned. My personal story with Ned, it's been something that now not only I've been using for my sleep, which actually has been helping very much so with my sleep. I'm having more deep, restful, restorative, regenerative sleep, but also I have recently had a small minor surgery and I've been utilizing the hemp day formula, and it's been helpful at reducing inflammation and pain. It's amazing stuff. It's one of my favorite ingredients across the board. So as a give back to the Heal Thyself listener, you're gonna receive 15% off of your first purchase, or 20% off of your first membership purchase. And memberships are amazing because they have great perks. You're gonna get 15% off of every single purchase as a member. So go to helloned.com/Dr. G, enter your code DRG at the checkout. That's HELLONED.com/DRG. You're gonna get 15% off of your first one-time order, or 20% off of your first subscription order, plus free shipping. Aura Organic, I don't know, maybe 3 years it's been so far, at least 2.5. I've been speaking about Aura. I've been putting them on my stories way before we were involved with them at Heal Thyself. Aura has been very much so one of the first and most transparent companies out there, plant-based, organic nutrition company. It's got everything from protein powder to skin, hair, and nail supplements. I utilize their collagen. I utilize their green powder. I utilize their pre-workout beet powder. I utilize their protein powder. So I want to tell you specifically about their Easy Being Green powder. I just mentioned that one. It's certified organic and vegan. Because I am a very on-the-go person, it's hard for me to always be cooking for myself. One of the reasons why I love their daily greens is because I can put it in my smoothie and know that I'm getting a nice spectrum of phytonutrients, those plant chemicals that are having that antioxidant effect in our body. Easy Being Green contains a very specific ingredient called triphalia, and it's an herbal formulation and it means 3 fruits, but it's a powerful antioxidant that they added in there, but it's also helpful for the digestive system, which is why I love their formula. Now, you remember I did a green powder show, and Organic was one of the most transparent, top ones, and clean. Remember, a clean, organic green powder is so important. What I mean by clean is not only that it has an organic label, but it has a low level of pesticides, herbicides, and heavy metals, which you do see in green powders. Aura Organic has accounted for all of that. So you can find Aura Organic at Ulta, Whole Foods, Vitamin Shop. You can also shop online at www.aura.organic. That's www.ora.organic, and use the code Heal Thyself at checkout, and you're going to get 10% off of your next purchase. That's HEALTHYSELF for 10% off. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Heal Thyself. Thank you for joining the show. As always, so much love and gratitude coming from my side that you're taking the time out from your day to open up and expand your knowledge when it comes to health, wellness, and overall just optimizing and bettering your life of your loved ones and yourself. So check this out. Today, really cool show. The Knowledge Bomb segment, I'm going to go into one of the #1 causes of anxiety that you may not be realizing. Something that you are exposed to every single day that you may not even know is right under your nose, causing you tons and tons of anxiety. You may have already guessed it, but we'll go into it in the Knowledge Bomb. Also, very special guest, my friend here, Manoj Dias, is coming to the show. He's a meditation teacher, but we're not just going to be speaking about meditation. We're going to be speaking about creating a relationship with our body, which is so important when it comes to our overall health. Understanding that your body has the capacity to heal is so important for us to utilize as a main understanding when it comes to our relationship with our overall health. So Manoj is going to come in, talk about how trauma is stored in the body, different meditations we can do to bring awareness to the body and release some of that stress. So without further ado, let's get to this knowledge bomb. All right, I want to bring to the forefront one of the biggest drivers for anxiety, and we may not even know it. All right, we're indulging and experiencing in this driver on the daily. All right, you may have already guessed it, but it's going to be our cell phone. Now, I did a cell phone show a while ago. It was called the Electronics on Our Mental Health. And for the past 10 to 15 years, we've been exposed to this completely new stimulus. And our brain has not necessarily had the time to adapt. And when I talk about new stimulus, it's a massive tidal wave of over and over images and stimulus and words and sounds that, again, we are not necessarily used to. Now, the concept of nomophobia is real, and that's the fear of not having cell phone, right? No mobile device phobia. And I've been around people and I've seen it where I can't have a conversation where until they're reaching for their phone, or the first pause in our conversation, they're reaching for their phone. I'm guilty of it, and I've been there. So I want to go into some of these details about how cell phones are driving anxiety, but also give you some solutions as always. Now, when it comes to cell phones as a whole and how they're affecting our brains, particularly children's, how they're linked to other mental health disorders like depression, you want to check out episode 73. I go into detail about this. But here are some facts that I wanted to lay out before I get into the anxiety aspect. According to the Pew Research Center, back in 2015, 46% of Americans cannot live without a smartphone. And people check their cell phone 47 times per day minimum, but it can go up to hundreds, right? Especially if you're working in my field where I'm always on social media, I'm sure I'm up in the hundreds. And 85% of people will check their cell phones when speaking to friends or family. And throughout the world, nearly 5 billion people are utilizing mobile phones now, while 3 billion of the people are accessing the internet on a regular basis. So the average user of a cell phone is going to swipe or click their phone about 2,617 times a day. That's astounding when you think about that number, when you think about how much interaction is done between our joints and our muscles of our fingers and the phone. 47% of people will try to limit their usage, but 30% will succeed. Only 30 of that 40%, which is wild, right? Not everyone is succeeding, even if we're trying. And the average time that people spend on their phone is about 2 hours and 51 seconds per day. And 47% of parents say their child is addicted to their cell phone and it's affecting their school and their behavior, all right? So realistically, when we think about it, technology and screen time has rewired our brains. And it's appearing that increased screen time is causing more of a rewiring or a change in our brains in accordance to it. So when we understand that our brain adapts to environments, it is plastic, so it adapts to the stimulus that it's given. If this is a major part of the stimulus to our brains, then it's something that we need to really think about. How can we create space between us and our cell phone? So a few more facts before I go into this really interesting study. There's a 27% increase in dependency of 8th graders for social media, and they become heavy users of social media. And teens who spend about 5+ hours per day on the phone have a 71% increase in suicide risk versus those who spent 1 hour. And also, those who spent 5 hours or more a day on their phone had a 51% reduction in sleep. This isn't children, right? So we're laying the foundation for a generation of adults who are going to be suffering with anxiety, depression, reduced concentration, reduced focus, shorter attention span, all because of these devices, which have a lot of utility in our lives. But we have to understand how to better our relationship with them, because there's an overswelling of the relationship that we can be having with our phone, and it's really affecting us. So yeah, you may have heard these statistics already, but I really wanted to focus on the anxiety element of this. So March of 2016, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, They had a very telling study about cell phone usage and human behavior. And it was actually published in a journal called Computers and Human Behavior. And what they did was they surveyed 300 students based on a few points. The points were this: the student's state of mental health, the amount of cell phone and internet usage, and why people turn to their electronic devices. So the goal of this study was to evaluate the overall psychological distress that is based on addictive cell phone behaviors and internet usage. So the author of this study, Alejandro Leras, was quoted as saying, people who self-described as having really addictive style behaviors towards the internet and cell phones scored much higher on depression and anxiety scales. However, the researchers found no relationship between cell phone and internet use and negative mental health outcomes among participants who use these technologies to escape boredom. Now, this is a very important distinction we come to. Addictive behaviors versus usage of cell phones based on boredom may be the key into understanding how this anxiety element really works with cell phone usage. So the question is, can we replace what we define as boredom as the opportunity to calm down our nervous system from the electronic stimulus and an opportunity to be more present in the moment that we're in? So there was a follow-up study, and the authors tested having cell phones during stressful situations. And people who had cell phone accessibility were less likely to be negatively affected by stress, which is an interesting thing because the very device that is soothing the anxiety at the time, the stress, is also one of the root causes for anxiety, especially in folks who have addictive personalities. So I want you to keep in mind, what are some of the signs that you are having a relationship with your cell phone that can be predisposing you towards anxiety? Well, you can't get off your cell phone even when you're conversing with someone. You have trouble concentrating or can't finish work or chores or anything that's on your list without being distracted or wanting to check your cell phone. You're beginning to experience sleep issues. You need to be on your phone, or you start to feel anxious or irritable. And you think about missing something when you're not on your phone. Or also, you mask your phone. You go to the bathroom while you're at work or events just to check on your phone. If you're falling into any of these particular points of this category, then you may want to think about how healthy the relationship is with your phone. Because again, it can be predisposing us to things like anxiety and depression or reduced concentration, sleep issues. We're at an interesting place in humanity where we have this device that gives us so much benefit and connects us so much, and a lot of our lives, like emails, works, phone calls all day, social media for me is tied up and tethered into this. But also, no one on the other side of it is really speaking to us about what a proper, healthy relationship with this device looks like. And less people, particularly professionals, health professionals, or your doctor, I guarantee your doctor didn't sit with you and talk about how long you're on your cell phone or what your relationship with your cell phone is. But many of these health issues that we're seeing, I mean, how many times you go to doctor and go, doctor, I'm having sleep issues, and they give you a sedative or a sleep support instead of asking you, number one, what's your relationship with your cell phone? All right. So let's think about that right now. This is an opportunity to really push forward this conversation and have it with our loved ones. All right. So all of this going on, I want to give you some solutions that can be really helpful, because if any of these things resonate with you, then here's an opportunity to make a change. So what I found that has helped to bring me the most freedom from having a healthier relationship with my phone is focusing on intentionality. I first had to think about, how much am I respecting my own time and my own human experience, right? Because we can easily become distracted and tethered again to this device, and then neglect many things around us in our space and our human experience. So it's okay, and I'm not villainizing having a mindless outlet, particularly from the boredom aspect. But again, boredom doesn't necessarily have to be synonymous with cell phone. Boredom can be synonymous with having an opportunity to meditate or be present in nature. But I want to bring attention to just that. How intentional are you being about your life? And then it's going to bring more attention to the conversation whether or not if you're on the phone or talking to someone face to face, or doing a household task, or driving your car, listening to a podcast, or you're on a phone call, or you're waiting for a ride in public transport or an Uber without wanting or needing to check your cell phone at the first opportunity. If any of these things are happening in your life, then you have to bring attention that you're not necessarily free, right? And what I mean by free is having that sense of peace that is just flowing through you, where you don't need to be anywhere or do anything, particularly grabbing your cell phone, right? And if you're not free and you're reaching for your cell phone and it's becoming an impulse over a choice, then that freedom is holding you down like an anchor. And if you're not free, then you're bound to this reality that you've convinced yourself that there's a better thing out there than the present moment. And here's where I'm trying to bring your attention and consciousness, is that the fact of the matter is that there's nothing more fulfilling, safe, warm, peaceful than being rather than doing, right? So this is what I say: if you want a true sense of inner peace, if you want health, if you want your nervous system to be fully relaxed, your immune system to be fully working at its best capacity, then you want to have that inner sense of peace. And that's what I call freedom. Now, that's where you feel that everything is okay. You don't need a cell phone. You don't need your emails. You don't need the internet. You can find peace without reaching for a cell phone to create fulfillment within that moment. So here's some tips. Bring some gratitude to your phone. Understand what it does for you. Bring love to it, right? And the usages that it gives you, the blessing that it is. But create space after. Create space between you and your cell phone. And this may be the hardest step because it requires a certain amount of momentum to ascend past that discomfort. But I promise you, it gets easier. And how do we create this space? Well, have a definitive time where you do create that space, whether physically or mentally. What you can do is wake up in the morning, or have some time in the afternoon, or have some time at night, or do all three, even better, where you block off time where you're not on your phone, right? And even if it's minimum, let's say 1 hour morning, 1 hour afternoon, 1 hour at night, that's 3 hours of daily cell phone usage that's gone down. So now your brain is starting to rewire to another reality, right? The stimulus reduced by 3 hours, so that percentage of rewiring that's happening in your brain is going to be reduced. And that's a beautiful thing, because now you get to refocus that attention into other things. And another thing that's been really helpful, another solution, is especially at night, you can put the red light tint on your phone, which makes it much less colorful and attractive to you. And that's also going to be a nice deterrent from bringing you away from your phone. So create these boundaries as a respect to yourself, right? When your face is looking down at your phone, understand you're missing the biggest gift that life is offering you. And that's the opportunity to be deeply present at any moment of the day, right? And nothing feels more peaceful to the nervous system to give your full attention to everything, from a bird outside, to your coworker telling you a story, to being profoundly present with your family. That freedom that is available to you will melt away any lingering anxiety that you're feeling, without a doubt. So listen to me closely when I say this. You cannot experience anxiety when you are fully present. It's impossible, because your mind has become disabled from projecting to the future and has surrendered to the present moment. And you know you've mastered this when you go through the day and sometimes you forget the concept of cell phone or the concept of internet, right? We have way too much stimulus in our lives. We're overwhelmed daily. So you deserve to give yourself the respect of seeing the world without that distraction. And the people around you, they deserve your full attention, right? Without any filters. And people can always tell when they don't have your full attention. There's subtle cues that we have in life, whether you know it consciously or unconsciously, people can always tell. And what a way to show up in the world as people going, man, that person is so present. That's what I love about them. When I talk to them, they're fully there. What a quality to have when you can be present, because it's a gift to the person, but it's also a gift to yourself, because you get to be fully present. You get to see people for who they are. And that's incredible, without thinking about, oh, got to go back, got to get to my purse, got to get to my got to get to my bag, got to reach into my pocket and get on my phone and check out what's going on. Whatever I've convinced myself is better than the present moment. So here are a few tips that have worked very well for me. Really putting that time to put space between you and your phone is one of the biggest game changers. Again, when you create a schedule or you create non-negotiables, airplane mode, that phone is going to be, even if it has to be in your car away from you, or on the couch away from you, or wherever it may be that it's not accessible, and you know that for 1 hour in the morning, 1 hour in the afternoon, 1 hour at night, you're dedicating fully to yourself, whether it's, and make sure in these hours where you're not on your cell phone, where you've dedicated no cell phone time, and if it's 3 times a day, awesome. Make sure that within that time, you're finding time to do the opposite of the stimulus that the cell phone's giving you and being present. So find time, do something, whether it's mindful movement, whether it's meditation, whether it's literally going outside, sitting down, and paying full attention to every sound you hear, every smell that comes your way, everything you see, and truly being with the birds, with the trees, with the wind, with the dirt. Then you're going to start to put, then you're going to put into process that part of your brain that is negating all of that overstimulus from your cell phone and restoring and rehealing that really strong sensitive brain that we have. So really hope that helped. It's been really amazing and freeing. And look, when I put this into practice for myself, I didn't know that I had a low level of anxiety. Like it was just a low level of discomfort that I always had to do something or be somewhere. But man, it's so peaceful when you can overcome that part of you that and it's who's to blame? It's a big part of our lives, but now you have control and you can better your relationship. Okay. All right. So check this out. Manoj Dias. He is awesome. What an amazing meditation teacher. What an amazing mind when it comes to just a relationship with ourselves and community. So I can't wait to get him on. Let's get to this special guest segment. Man, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Manoj Dias is dropping in to talk about meditation. He's a meditation teacher, but also an author and the co-founder of Open out here in LA. And I have so many questions for you, man. You come here and it's like you are the pinnacle of like such an integral part that we're not paying attention to. Meditation, mindfulness, alignment, being that peace, our nervous system relaxing. How many of us are walking around right now in Los Angeles completely not mindful, our thoughts running around and our bodies holding in all of this trauma and anxiousness? Do you feel that from people out here?
Well, I think I've always felt that. And I think like what science and research tells us is that that's true, right? So there's two parts to that. One part is how many people are walking around not mindful, not present. And that's chances are at some point in time, it's almost every single one of us. There was a really interesting research piece that came out from Harvard, like I think in 2015, and the meditation world was talking about it. It said that 46% of our times, our minds are not actually here. So when you scale that, that's literally half of our day or almost half of our life that our minds aren't really on the present moment, right? So that's like one element to it. But then you talked about like the trauma, you talked about the nervous system being shook up. And I think that's almost every single person that has lived through the last 18 months, right? Like we have experienced at some point a moment of probably of collective trauma. And some of us are aware of that. Some of us can acknowledge that. And for others, it's difficult, right? Even for me, after like 15 years of having a very solid meditation practice, knowing all the ways that I now feel anxious in big group environments, like that's a degree of trauma that I didn't even know I had. All my reluctance to do or to work the way that I did prior to COVID, right? Like that's a moment of trauma. Like I just don't have the energy like I used to. Mm-hmm. So I think almost every single one of us is processing something at this moment in time.
50% almost? Are you kidding me? Most of our lives?
Yeah. I forgot who the researchers were on that, but it was wild to just consider how often, and you can even notice it like within our conversation, like, you know, every 18 seconds, I think they said, actually a lot less. It was 7 or 8 seconds, like our minds go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. And when you add those up, it blows your mind how not present we are in this moment.
Yeah. So for people viewing or listening, the natural question, if they never heard of this concept, is why do I have to be present in the moment? Right.
Yeah. And, you know, there's, again, a lot of sides to that. One is the medical benefits and the health benefits of being really present. You know, we know that our brains begin to atrophy after the age of 21, and specifically the frontal cortex. And one of the ways that we can not necessarily stop that, but slow down the atrophy of the brain is through mindfulness practice and more engagement with the present moment, more activation of those areas of the brain that regulate, our short-term memory, decision making, emotions, all of that. But for me, I don't really lean too much on the science and the research because I'm not a scientist or a doctor like you are. You should be talking about this. But for me, it's more like the quality of my day-to-day experience.
Yeah.
If I'm present in this moment, like I can have like a real authentic connection with someone. I can be there for my family. I can be there for the things that actually light me up. And that's really what motivates me when I practice and when I teach is like, I don't want to miss half my life. Like life is short enough as it is. I want to be more engaged and more present in the moments that I am there.
Purity Coffee is a top 1% coffee in the world. It is considered a specialty grade, organic, pesticide-free, mold-free, and mycotoxin-free coffee. I remember quite a while ago, I was going over the top, it was one of my first shows, going over the top coffees out there. And Purity Coffee kept coming up, not only from the people in my network, but when I spoke to them and I got to see their testing and how important it is for them to be the best of the best. And they want to be, and they are the best of the best when it comes to coffee. So many people drink coffee. I myself, I'm not one of them. I'm very sensitive to coffee, but it's one that I recommend to all of the coffee drinkers as patients or in my network too. So when it comes to Purity Coffee, it meets all of the standards. The beans are handpicked, quality checked at a farm to ensure the highest level of quality and antioxidant levels. And that's a benefit of coffee. The antioxidant density is why we see a lot of these health benefits coming from coffee, but they can be negated by pesticides, herbicides, mold, and mycotoxins. When it comes to Purity Coffee, it has 65% more antioxidants than any organic coffee brand. So, drinking healthier coffee, one of the easiest things you could do, right? And if you're going to do it every day, it's so important that you have the best of the best for overall wellness and longevity. So go to puritycoffee.com. That's puritycoffee.com, and you're going to get free shipping on orders over $50. Some of the most beautiful moments that I realize are when I'm doing something that I'm forced to be in a flow state. Say, for example, like, let's say mountain biking or something. If I'm going down a hill and I'm like, whoa, I don't have time to think, I'm just reacting. It sort of led me to believe, and I remember that moment, I was like, I think this is why people do extreme sports. So it just forces them to be present, and they're like, oh, I'm addicted to extreme sports. I think you're just addicted to how good you feel in the present moment.
Right. And I think what extreme sports and flow states really are is just a heightened state of mindfulness, right? And we each have those moments, like whether they're having a conversation, whether it is doing something extreme, whether it's having a deep and meaningful conversation, like there's a degree of presence, there's a degree of connection, there's a degree of compassion almost as well. And with extreme sports, if you're not present, you're probably going to die, right? So that gets you into that zone. And the interesting thing is with mindfulness and with meditation, we can recreate those moments. Like it takes a certain degree of focus, certain degree of having a goal to achieve as well. I just did an event last week on flow states. That's why it's fresh in my mind. You need to have a goal in mind in which you're trying to attain. You need to give yourself this ultimate focus and concentration, and you need to remove distractions. And we know we can recreate those moments, right? We remove the distractions by just being present right here. We give our awareness to the conversation that we're having, and we have a goal, which is to connect. So it can happen almost whenever we want.
Yeah, and getting into that flow state is very difficult for a lot of us because, let's say, even in a workflow state, right? What I find is, wow, I don't feel really creative sometimes. And it's hard for me to feel creative unless, like you said, removing distractions. So the biggest monkey wrench to my creation is my phone. It's crazy. It's like all of a sudden it's like buzzing, or even if it's not buzzing, like I'm just checking it real quick.
Right.
And I was like, damn, I was in such a flow. I find that is like, do you find that like the way society's set up with all these distractions, particularly in the past few years with, different apps and different notifications, that's one of the major disruptors for flow, getting in a flow state?
Yeah, I think technology is one of them for sure. And I think it's because of the dopamine hit that we get as soon as we check our phone, right? And now we've been conditioned to believe that whatever is happening on our phones is better than whatever's happening in real life. And I get it too. Like I'll be writing and I'm like, ooh, I haven't checked Instagram for a moment. What's happening? And then I see that little red icon, and
Yeah.
there's something inside of me that
Right.
that lights up. And when you're really present to your bodies, you notice that. And I notice that. I notice like that little of like that little excitement that I get from, someone sending me a DM or someone, liking my photo, which is wild to think about that, because that's essentially like we're taking drugs like every single
Yeah.
moment of our day, and we get hooked on it. And the same thing with drugs, like a dopamine hit comes, 20 minutes later we feel it again, we want to check it again. And so we have to really create some meaningful routines around
Hmm.
not being able to interact with our technology the way we have been.
Hmm. So, what are some of the things that you do to take that technology away, get in your creative writing state or teaching state? Because a lot of us say that we want to do these things, or we might even do them for a few days, and it's just so hard because they come back into our lives because so much of our life is based on technology.
Yeah, and for me, I'm not someone that believes that we should cut technology out altogether, because we need it, and this is modern life. But I think it's changing our relationship to it. So first of all, I turn off all my notifications, um, even emails, whatever it is. And then if I want to check my Instagram or my Facebook or my email, I have to choose to do it. My phone's not going to tell me to check
Hmm.
it. The second thing I do is I don't touch my phone until 8 a.m. And so I'll wake up most days at 6. I'll have my alarm on my phone, but outside of that, I won't use it. And what that really does, it allows me to just wake up naturally and normally. It allows like the melatonin levels in my body to kind of go down as I look off into the sunset or the sunrise, actually. I can have a conversation with my girlfriend. I can just feel like I'm waking up naturally. Sometimes when I do check my phone without being so mindful, I can feel myself already go into an activation of my nervous system. Like if
Yeah.
there's a meeting coming up that I'm not prepared for, or if I read something about something happening in the world, I'm like, and like those moments in the morning are sacred for me, man. I don't want to like wake up like that. And then I actually allocate time actually to use social media. And when I do that, I don't feel guilty about it. If I'm like, hey, 3 p.m., I got nothing to do, like I'm gonna give myself like 40 minutes to just
Mm.
do whatever I want. And that's pure, unadulterated time on social media, guilt-free, right? And that feels really good, because I know like this is the 45 minutes I'll give to my day, and after that I won't use it.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying it always works. I'm not saying I don't touch my phone outside of those hours. It's work even for me. But I know on the days that I create these healthy routines, I go to sleep a lot better. Like I wake up a lot better. My body doesn't feel as burnt out and as wired.
100%. This is the thing that I find that if I don't wake up with my phone near me and then I go to sleep with a ritual about an hour
Mm,
without my phone, man, my sleep scores on my Aura Ring are like awesome,
right.
but also how I feel. I'm like, whoa, I feel creative. I feel like I can do an improv and a freestyle rap at the same time.
Right. Right.
Like
Right
put me
before
on the
bed.
spot. I'm so fast. Yeah, right before bed, I feel so good. But one thing you said is how your nervous system is activated. I find that because there's been days like I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing rituals, and I got to be at the house in 20 minutes anyway. I
Mm,
reach for my phone and I find that like my hands get sweaty in bed. I'm like, why are my
mm,
hands sweating? My feet
mm,
sweating, and it's like the nervous system is already knows what it's getting into. Whereas that never happens if I just
mm.
lay in bed and just sort of think about what I'm grateful for.
Right, right. And
Yeah, well,
in one of the important things that I've been telling people to do, especially in 2020, where meditation has been hard for a lot of people, like myself included. It's freaking hard in the middle of a pandemic to just, let things go and, concentrate like we used to, is to do some slow diaphragmatic breaths. And this for me, in like that and breath work, I know you've spoken of breath work
hmm
before, has been a game changer for me, in those moments right before bed or in the morning when I feel the pangs of anxiety or tension, is to do the box breath, 4 breaths in, hold, 4 breaths out, hold. And what this does is like you're slowing the heart rate, you're actually taking in less breaths per minute. And this just brings my nervous system right down. And in those moments, it actually prepares me for a meditation,
mm.
And I think little hacks like this, I've started to integrate more into my day and into my life, because sometimes I don't have 30 minutes or 45 minutes like I used to in 2019 to do these practices. Now I'm just finding ways to drop into that space.
I love the like the pre-meditation hack because I'll find sometimes I'll sit down, my heart's beating, I'm ready to go. Like my body's like, no, go for the day. Go now. You're ready to work out. Now you're ready to
Right.
open your emails. That's the hardest for me to meditate. But really integrating something like a breath work technique, I don't know why I didn't think about that, but I'll just like, my body will relax and then I'll get into it.
Yeah, I mean, these days you just get whatever you can from wherever you can, right?
Yeah.
And I think preparing for a practice is so important because the ability to just be with what is, you can't surpass that. Like I personally, and other people have different opinions, don't think a movement practice replaces a meditation practice. I think they should work together. And breath work is the same. I don't think for me, it replaces my meditation practice, but I use them together and I get the benefits of both.
Yeah. So then are you a believer that if someone who does yoga, they should do the meditation with it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a believer that you can experience mindfulness in many different ways, right? You can do it having sex, you can do it eating food. There's many ways to feel the effects of mindfulness. But for me, I don't believe anything replaces a mindfulness meditation practice because it's so much more concentrated, right?
Yeah.
You're having to sit there and you're having to observe thoughts come. You're having to not respond with judgment. You're having to cultivate compassion and
Yeah.
kindness. And there are moments you can do it in your day and in your yoga practice or movement practice. But for me, there's nothing that's quite as beneficial as that concentrated, 10, 15, 20 minutes where you're just sitting with the experience of your mind.
So you started off in the Buddhist practice of, and we were talking a little bit off air about and that's mindful base, or you're just working with the mind, focus, concentration, and you sort of shifted that a little bit more towards the body. Like, where'd your progression go?
Yeah, so I was raised in the Buddhist context at home in Sri Lanka, which is where I was born, and I was raised in the Theravada Buddhist tradition, which has a big focus on liberation through the mind, so freeing our mind of suffering. And suffering here is, stress, anxiety, worry, all of those different things. It was a very cognitive experience for me, and over time, I just realized I was thinking a lot and I was bypassing a lot of very important things. And this idea of bypassing is very prevalent now when we think of people going to meditation or going to yoga to avoid feeling bad, right? And that's not really what meditation teaches us to do. Meditation is not getting rid of unpleasant things in our life. It's changing our relationship to it. Because ultimately what we realize is we can't avoid bad things happening in our life. They just naturally tend to happen, right? So over the last 5 to 7 years, my practice has moved from the Theravada Buddhist tradition to more what's called the Mahayana Buddhist tradition, and in particular practices like somatic practices, so working with the body as a field of awareness, and working with anger, working with sadness, and using the energy of that to transform our experience, not actually saying the experience is bad, or not actually trying to get rid of it, but just using the energy of anger, which is so powerful and so potent, and we should be using that because it has a tremendous ability to change things in our life, right? Anger, when used properly. And I think most of us don't recognize that, right? We think anger is bad. I want to feel happy all the time. And if I'm not happy, let me go do a yoga class, or let me drink this green juice, or let me do this diet. And really, the holistic understanding of meditation practice is working with emotions skillfully.
And transforming it so you can utilize it in your life more effectively.
Yeah, and transforming sometimes can sound like changing it, but actually using it, like using the anger to make something. Because think about a time, for you when you were really angry and all of a sudden your mind just got really sharp. It got really clear. You knew exactly what you wanted to do and what it was you wanted to create.
Yeah.
But then you might not have reacted with skillfulness, right? And that might mean you might have yelled, you might have stormed off, you might have hit things. And meditation teaches us to use that energy, which is so friggin' potent, but to do it in a way which actually gets you the result you want to do, which is change, which is, at that moment, you're not happy with something and you want that to be something else.
It's interesting you say it because there's moments where I've had like anger come up and then I'm like, why am I even doing, not even, it didn't have to do with the thing that got me angry. I'll think of something else and be like, why am I even doing this? I don't even like doing this. Like, I'm so
Right.
angry. I just want to like cut it off.
Right. And that's exactly what everyone does in modern society. I want to cut off this because it feels unpleasant.
Right.
And again, meditation teaches us that there isn't pleasant and unpleasant things. Like everything is just there. Like there are ways that we respond to pleasant feelings and ways that we respond to negative feelings. But at the end of the day, they're just feelings. And feelings are messages, right? Like we need them. We need to know because at that moment, your body's telling you, I don't want to do this. But your mind is like, no, I should be doing this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And how amazing it would be just to have this intuition that's speaking to us all the time and to be like, ooh, I'm going to listen to that. In order for us to do that, we have to slow down our thinking and we have to be really present to our bodies.
Hmm. I love that you say that, because you said field of awareness for our bodies. A lot of us are so out of touch with our bodies. Man, out of touch that we're eating foods that we don't even know are affecting us so badly. We're just not even making the connection. That's how out of touch we are. Through meditation, is that sensitizing you head to toe to not only like, okay, this food bothers me, but like this place bothers me, this person doesn't really jive with me. Is it heightening our awareness the more we do it consistently?
100%. And really what we're cultivating is an intimacy with life, right? We're getting to know our responses moment to moment. So in this conversation, I feel very energized right now, as an example. And the way I know I'm energized is that I feel like energy rushing from my belly into my chest. And then as the energy rushes belly into my chest, I feel a mental clarity in this conversation with you. And like I'm tuned to right now to all of these things, right? But if the conversation wasn't going well, I would have noticed like my mind wandering away, like, what am I going to eat after that? Like, geez, I'm really hungry, and he's talking about food, and what food am I going to eat?
Right.
And so I think the more we do of anything, and we know this through neuroplasticity, the more we do of anything, the better we become of it, and the more intimately we begin to understand that. And so listening to our body is the same thing. Sometimes though, we don't like what the body is telling us, right?
Right.
And it's like, I'm feeling sad, and we don't want to hear that because we've got a big day at work and we need to power through it. So it's like, let me get my coffee, let me do some push-ups, let me just get on with it. And that might work. And that is needed from time to time, right? But there's also a tremendous value in just slowing down and going like, okay, what is it that I need right now? Right? And the body is always telling us. It's very intelligent,
Yeah.
and we're very attuned to it, but we just don't listen to it.
I remember, in talking about the body's intelligence, it's funny, before you came, I did the knowledge bomb segment of the show, talking about the innate intelligence of the body and how it's more intelligent than any doctor out there or any scientist. And you sort of know it because your body can heal a cut, but also your body knows how to work through those emotions. And we, with the mind, think we're so smart, and we shove those emotions deep down inside and we suppress them, and the body's continuously trying to release them.
Right.
Look how strong the mind is. It's always keeps me in awe, like how we can hold in grief, hold in anger, hold in sadness,
Yeah.
but we can't hide it.
We can't hide it. And what you said, it's so potent because it's conditioning, it's social conditioning, right? And it's the prevailing view that there are certain feelings that are good and certain feelings that are bad. A whole industry, the wellness industry, has been created on certain feelings being good and certain feelings being bad. So what I know to be true, and the Buddha spoke about this because in his 4 foundations of mindfulness, he said the first foundation is the body. The body is present. It is always here. The body is receptive to the present moment. Because it is, right? Like our minds can be in the past or the future. It can be thinking about different things, but our body is literally here. And in order for us to decondition from the cultural conditioning, we have to stop. We have to begin to train our mind. And we can do that. We can retrain our mind like we can our bodies to be really engaged with the moment just as it's unfolding.
I love that, because that's sort of our antenna to feel what the heck, again, the awareness, our body awareness of what's going on in the room. How do we feel into that? Do we want to even do that? It took a while, but for me, I noticed that if I don't want to do something, it's right in my stomach.
Yeah.
And it's like a knot. And still, how many times I was like, no, forget that knot. I'm just going to do it because I'm supposed to.
Right.
It's
right.
wild.
And a really interesting thing is like, we've heard, right, when it comes to true love and when you meet someone and you get butterflies, it's like, it's special because you get butterflies. The Buddhist view on that is actually quite different. It's when you just feel really calm, like there's no butterflies. There's just like a feeling of, I feel like I'm at home with this person. And when I'm around people and I feel that, that's when I feel the most authentic and the most at ease. That's when I feel the most comfortable, is when I feel like I'm at home with this person. And when it comes to love, like that's how I know, like if I'm with someone and I feel that sensation, I'm like, oh, there's something really special here, because it's not often we get to feel that.
Interesting. Because we're looking at all of the romantic comedies and they're like, oh my God, I got butterflies in my belly from my first date with him, But the way you say it is so true, because the people who've been closest to me in my life, I've been the most authentically outspoken, performance-based, dramatic, sassy Christian you'll ever see from the get-go, day one. Like my personality is out there without fear, but it's sort of, you have to have that feeling of just like that calmness in the stomach, and that's I mean, in the stomach or the whole body, but for me, it's in my
Right.
stomach.
And I know it varies and it's good. We're not trying to say the butterflies aren't good. Like there are also messages, right? But I think there's something amazing to feeling really safe around someone. And I think safety is what I feel around like my family or my best friend or my girl. And that feeling of safety allows me to be the most authentic self, right?
So we were chatting a little bit about trauma and how like that's a topic of interest for you, a topic of interest for me. How do you see trauma in the body and the mind? How do you see it affecting us? Is there a way to start working with the body to release it or the mind, however you see it? I'd love to know what your take is on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing everyone should do is read The Body Keeps a Score. It's like an incredible, incredible book that really brings to the forefront how traumatized we each are and to varying degrees, right? And I think we have for the longest time thought of trauma with a big T, like tragic life event, big occasion, this happened, abuse, assault, that sort of stuff. And yes, like that is a traumatic moment. But there are also little cuts. There are these little moments of trauma, which we can refer to as emotional wounds if it makes us feel better, but it's still really trauma, right? And familial trauma is what the majority of us are really working with. And it's what I see day to day when it comes to students coming to meditation or spiritual practice. It's like there's some degree of trauma that we've experienced. And like yoga and meditation can be a way that we don't want to feel that trauma, right? That's why so many of us are meditation teachers because we're traumatized and then we find something and we're like, this is healing, I'm going to dive into it. But the majority of us, and I'll put myself in there as well, is that we haven't duly processed our own trauma. And so trauma can show up in many ways. It can show up in the fact that we refuse to engage in conversation around topics that are uncomfortable. We can respond with anger in moments where it's just really not needed. We can respond in the opposite of that, where we just shut down, right? And we refuse to engage. And so the way that we work with it from the perspective of meditation is to first create a safe space to be able to experience it. And you should definitely work with a skilled meditation teacher. If you are planning on working with trauma and and you're actively aware of what that trauma is, and there are thousands, millions of amazing meditation teachers. I also encourage people to work with a therapist as well. I think the combination of meditation and therapy is undefeatable. Like it is, for me, the most potent combination, right? Along with a healthy diet and friendship, all of those things. But then if we're talking about specifically with curiosity, exploring meditation and the relationship with trauma, then it's creating a sense of friendship around our bodies. And a lot of us don't have a relationship of friendship with our bodies. We hate our bodies, be it just by the very physical appearance of our bodies, but also energetically, we don't really like to engage with our bodies in a way that is conducive to learning about it, in a way that's conducive to becoming friends with it. A particular practice that I work with is a practice that one of my mentors, Scott Tusa, learned from his teacher, Sonia Rinpoche, who's like one of the greatest Tibetan meditation teachers out there. It's called handshake practice. It's a practice in which we're cultivating awareness of our body, and we're meeting that awareness of our body with the field of compassion. And what that really means is that if I notice, for example, and I'm meditating, and all of a sudden I notice like a tension underneath my ribs. And what we learn in meditation is if your mind gets distracted by a physical thing, bring your attention to that. Don't just be like, no, I'm focusing on my breath. Like bring attention to that. If we bring attention to that little ache underneath my ribs and we're really present to it and we say, you're allowed to be here, right? Instead of, what is this? Get rid of it. What it usually reveals is an underlying, an emotional wound. That could be anger. And for me, it's usually anger. Actually, that's the one I've been working with a lot for the last 4 or 5 years. If I create space for this anger, what gives rise to that is usually a sadness. And at that moment, I'll feel anger in my meditation. Like I'll allow myself to feel it. And this is tremendously healing because, like we talked about before, a lot of us don't want to feel these things. And if you can create a safe space in your meditation to feel the anger or feel the sadness or feel the loneliness, it's like a wound that's just open and you're letting it bleed dry. Once it's been bled dry, you can then tend to it, right? But if it's an open wound and straight away we're like, I don't want to feel this, I don't want to feel it, the blood just keeps on dripping out, right? So it's the same analogy when it comes to meditation. Allow yourself to feel the full weight of your experience. and then create some compassion around it, create some spaciousness around it.
Wow.
And if it becomes overwhelming, for sure, stop, work with a psychologist, work with a skilled meditation teacher. But what I do know from my 15, 16 years of practice is that the only way that we can genuinely move through difficult emotions and feelings is to be able to feel it.
To be able to feel it, and how important that one line is, because we don't know how to feel. We don't learn how to feel. Society teaches us what, especially as men, we ain't supposed to feel at all. Especially if you come from a family who is the generation from outside, let's say an immigrant, and old school masculinity where you can't feel. Then it's propagated right to you, and then your kids, and it's such an important practice, man.
Right, right. And we take what we learn, like consciously or unconsciously from what we're surrounded by. So a lot of what we're walking around with is not our own doing. Like, we're not responsible for the way that we feel. I think that's also really important to call out, because sometimes we can walk around feeling like we're not enough. There's something wrong with us. And again, like, that's simply not true. Like, at our essence, we are basically good people. We are basically whole and complete. And we're walking around with these emotional wounds that we've inherited or that we've experienced of no fault of our own.
Inherited, and it's not just from family. It's from school, teachers, authoritative figures, even TV. Something we learned.
And epigenetics tells us it's in our DNA, right? It could be generations upon generations that have experienced trauma. So it's something that's just so prevalent that we should normalize it and talk about it. And it's not something that we should be embarrassed about.
And I love that you just gave us a take home. It's really easy. Meditate. How many of us, I think most people who listen to the show have tried meditation once. We can sit down with ourselves, but I've been guilty of it. I've been like, what's this pain in my stomach here? Forget it. Let me get back to my breath. I got to get back in this meditation, not knowing that maybe that's what the body was trying to communicate with me.
And it takes curiosity, right? Like, can I be curious about this? Like, what is there? And it could be nothing. It could just be like a weird little thing that you've eaten. Or it could give rise to something else. And at that moment, there's a deep wisdom that we're just not tapping into.
And I love that you said friendship with the body. There was one moment, and it was last year, where I was in this ceremony, and it was a sound ceremony, and I was so deep. And then I came to the place where I swear I was having a full mental conversation with my body. Like, I was asking it questions, and it was answering me by contracting a part of my body, like spasming it, until I kept asking the question. Once my theory, like, was it this? Once I got yes, it relaxed it, like just a valve being released. I swear it was playing a game for 45 minutes to an hour. But ever since then, I've laid down in bed every morning and I check in with my body really quick. I say, hey, how are you feeling? Where can I give love? What do I feel off? And I really feel into it. And I swear, me and my body, I sound like a crazy man, I know, have a full relationship with each other.
Right.
And it's been developing just in the past year after 36 years of life.
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's wild, and you're having a relationship with yourself.
Yeah,
that's really what it is. Like, you're learning to be a friend to yourself. And the same way that you would be a friend to your best friend, you would listen to them, you would take in what they're saying, you would give advice when it's needed, you would see when they're off on the wrong path or the right path. You do the same thing with yourself. And it's a lifelong journey for many of us, men included, right? It's that, let's listen to what our bodies are saying, because intuitively, usually there's something there that we're not tapping into.
For sure. And as men, like you said, we don't even know until the pain's like inflaming us, until we have the symptoms. And what you're teaching is the subtleties of listening to the body before that even occurs. Because I am a believer that those trapped emotions grow and grow and grow to a manifestation of disease. Like, I believe it. I've seen it in cancer. I've worked in cancer, and I've seen people heal when they've broken through those emotional wounds and let that body release all that stuff.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I haven't, but I genuinely believe that pent-up emotions have negative consequences in our life.
So I love it. So check this out. You have a book out.
I do.
You have a book out. It's released in Australia already?
It's just released in Australia 2 days ago. It's out in North America and the UK in 2 weeks.
Okay, what's the name?
It's called Still Together.
All right, and what are we going to find in this book?
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. The funny story about this is that I got the book deal in 2019, and as is usual with me, I just don't do anything about it. I just like, I'll end up writing it soon. And the book is about connection. And then all of a sudden my publisher's like, yo, you need to like get this manuscript in, like what's happening? I'm like, okay, cool, I'll start tomorrow. And like literally like next week, the pandemic hit. And I was in Australia, I was locked down for 7 months. We were allowed out of the house for 1 hour a day. And I found myself writing a book about connection when I was disconnected from literally everyone. So the irony on about that wasn't lost on me. But the book is actually exploring the many ways in our life we are disconnected, right? From our bodies, from each other, from the present moment, and the effects of that. And I talk about technology in there as well. And then we look at ways that we can begin to reconnect, reconnect with all of these different areas. And specifically, I talk about reconnecting and finding connection with people that we don't agree with and people that we struggle with. And so we explore different mindfulness practices. We look at Buddhist psychology. We look at personal anecdotes, and it's really an invitation, right? It's an invitation to realize and recognize that we are so disconnected. And now that we're going back into the world, for many of us, we've got social anxiety now. Like I've spent 12 months by myself. How do I reconnect with the modern world? And so it explores that as well.
I love it. I'm so excited to read it myself, and it'll be out here in the UK in 2 weeks from now. But probably when this is out, it's going to be like in a few days. So I'm so excited. Also, we can find you out here in California. You're teaching here.
Yes. I'm co-founder of Open. It's a mindfulness platform. You can find us on Open, and we do live classes every day around breathwork, movement, and meditation. And you can find me everywhere else, the usual spots, right? Instagram, Facebook, websites.
What's your Instagram?
It's just my name, Manoj Dias.
Okay, awesome. Manoj Dias. I love it. And now I'm saying it the right way.
You can say it the right way. You say it the way that my mum says it, which is Manoj, but everyone else in the world says it Manoj, and I'm okay with both.
Awesome, man. And for the people who aren't here in person, you do have this like aura, man, I am like grounded around you, like my head was in the sky. I was thinking about all the things I need to do today. And then you walk in, I was like, so the meditation is real, that awareness, the body energy, the aura, it's like people feel it. And it's just a testament to everything you've been doing for a while. And I love the work you're doing for humanity, man. Like we need to hear everything you're saying. And I'm glad that we can get you on the show.
Thank you, man. And thank you as well for the great work you're doing. And I appreciate you, and I appreciate this chat. I felt, real lit up by it.
All right, man. Awesome segment with Manoj. I told you he is a gift to humanity. Really hope that helped you understanding what your relationship is with your body, how you can better yourself. And look, it ties into the knowledge bomb, like the connection with our cell phones too. If we can bring more presence and mindfulness to our life, we can do this in those moments where we block out those times of being away from our cell phones. So look, thank you for joining. Thank you for rating. Thank you for reviewing, subscribing. If you haven't, rate, review, subscribe, and get on. Do it on iTunes, whatever you use, Spotify if you use it, YouTube if you use it. Support the show, and let's expand it. Thank you so much. Much love to you, and I'll see you next week.